Hey, it's Domestic Rockstar, and we have a treat today of another Halloween episode to give you 2 more horror movie reviews. That's right, 2 more horror movie reviews just for Halloween. I promised more Halloween content, and here you go. So the other night I was watching Valley Girl for the first time since I was like a preteen, and while watching it as an adult I realized that the movie did not have the same effect on me. I totally hated it. While telling my husband my total disappointment of watching Valley Girl as an adult and disliking it completely, he came up with this great idea for me to review some movies that I had seen as a kid that totally scared the crap out of me and watch them as an adult to see if my opinion of them or the things that I've been scared of my whole life because of them would change. So I did just that. The first movie that scared the crap out of me as a kid was Pumpkinhead.
Will it be all right? Should I be afraid?
It's coming!
Looking for an old woman. She lives somewhere in the mountains hereabouts.
All she can do is take you straight to hell. You go home and you bury your boy.
Some folks will say as how she's got powers.
Who are you?
Ed Harley.
What do you want, Ed Harley? Say it. You're looking for vengeance. Vengeance. Say it. There's an old graveyard way back deep in them woods. The thing you're looking for is in there.
It was an accident.
It's gotta run its course. Now it begins. It begins.
It was filmed in 1987 and released in 1988. And when I was 8, when it came out, I lived in military housing in Marin County up in the hills. We lived in these little tiny duplexes surrounded by these beautiful hills with lots of trees, and the setting for it was very similar to Pumpkinhead's setting, and it scared the crap out of me. At night I would sleep away from the windows so I wouldn't get snatched up by Pumpkinhead in the middle of the night and torn into the trees. We didn't even have any major trees right by our house, but we did have this one huge eucalyptus tree in our backyard that kind of shared our yard, or we shared it with our neighbors, and it was close to my room but nowhere near my window. But I was totally terrified of Pumpkinhead as a kid. I had nightmares about him. He had this huge, long, alien-like head, and I just was so first of all, as an adult, I have a much more appreciation for the movies that came out in the 80s that actually were good, and this is one of them. I give it a 5 stars. The director, Stan Winston, actually was a special effects genius, and he worked on movies like Aliens, Predator, Terminator, and Jurassic Park. And those movies all had such great special effects. Him and his team actually did some of Monster Squad as well. I'm not sure if he did, but I know some of his team did. And I'll share the making of Pumpkinhead video that I watched directly after this movie in the links below. But overall, Pumpkinhead was really scary. It's still really good. I have a better appreciation for it now as an adult. With Lance Henriksen as the main character who played Bishop in Aliens, the android with half a body. He did an amazing job in this movie. So his character is Ed Harley, and Ed has a son who looks just like the boy from Jerry Maguire, by the way. They could have been the same actor if it wasn't years apart. So these douchebag city folk come into this little tiny town where Ed and his son run a little shop, and they bring their dirt bikes and their total Flashdance 80s wardrobes and start just being douchebags right off the bat. So Ed runs into these redneck customers of him that are pretty scary. And another note, one of the little girls that doesn't even get credited as a main character anything happens to be Blossom, Mayim Bialik, who is on The Big Bang Theory now. But I totally recognized her, and she plays one of the little redneck children. And just like most 80s horror films, the bad guy totally has like a nursery rhyme song around it that just scares the other kids. And you can see that in the first like 20 minutes of the movie. Some kids start singing about Pumpkinhead to another little kid, and he totally gets frightened. But all the while, the douchebags are off being douchebags, and Ed Harley's trying to run his store with his son and their little dog, and the redneck customer needs some feed, and Ed Harley left it at home, so he's going to have to deliver it to him later. So Ed, after the redneck family leaves, Ed leaves his 7 or 8 year old kid to run a store by himself with customers like the rednecks that were just there and creepy, and a bunch of douchebags from out of town with all these strangers. He totally leaves his kid unattended with all these strangers. I don't know what kind of parenting that is, but it seems kind of crappy to me, even in the 80s. Note to parents, don't leave your kids with strange douchebags, and don't leave a 7 or 8 year old by themselves anytime, anywhere. Not okay. So Ed leaves his son there, and the douchebags riding their dirt bikes through the hills right by the store end up getting chased by the kid's dog, and the kid runs after him, and some of the girls that are part of the douchebag group try to stop the kid, and then of course he gets hit by a dirt bike and scratched a little bit on his face. He falls over, and oh my god, he's dead. He's dead. Like, the girl starts freaking out. The douchebag that hit him, and it was a total accident, totally like takes off and runs away and doesn't want to deal with it. And the kid's a decent actor, but the whole time they're like checking on him. Not once do they check his pulse, and he's like blinking and moving his mouth a little bit, so you can tell he's still alive, but immediately they think he's dead, and they totally start freaking out. Then part of the group goes and chases the douchebag that is leaving to try to figure out why he's leaving, why he wouldn't stick around and take care of the kid, because, dude, it's a kid. You just hit the kid and you're taking off. You're a dick. But he has some history with something bad that happened, and he tells his friend he's leaving because I've been drinking, they'll fry me. So apparently this was like the sentiment in the 80s that you got fried in the electric chair if you did anything scary or bad, I guess. So I don't know, this guy was a jerk and totally shouldn't have run away from after hurting a kid, which is 2 big moral no-nos in the beginning of the movie. So one of the guys sticks around with the kid and waits for Ed Harley to come back so he can tell him that it was an accident and try to make sure that the kid was okay. So Ed Harley shows up, tries to find the dog, tries to find the kid, sees the douchebag sitting there with him, laying down with a shirt covering him up, and comes running over. He immediately grabs the kid up in his arms, gives the dude a dirty look, the guy's trying to tell him, like, dude, it was an accident, we didn't mean to, and Ed gives him the dirtiest look ever, wraps his kid up, and takes him away. So after Ed Harley finds his son dead by these douchebag city folks, he wraps him up in a blanket, puts him in his truck, and drives him up to this little redneck shanty where some of his redneck neighbors live. Apparently this town doesn't have a doctor or a hospital, because he immediately wants to know where a witch is. A witch. I hope she takes insurance. I'd be taking my kid to the hospital. I mean, he wasn't even dead. And like, he had some scratches on his face and was breathing and totally blinking, but nobody cared to check. They just immediately wanted to take him to a damn witch. So Ed takes him to the witch and asks her to do something for him. She knows what it is. She tells him what he needs to do. And then the whole entrance into the witch's house, as he's carrying his son in there for the first time, was super awesome. The sets were amazing in this movie. I could tell that a lot of dedication and a tremendous amount of work went into it, and it was pretty cool to see a lot of the traditional special effects being used throughout the movie. And you can tell that Stan Winston and his crew are totally dedicated to making something realistic and scary at the same time. So Ed takes his son and buries him in this pumpkin patch bog cemetery place, which is totally spooky too. They have the perfect lighting, smoke, and it totally looks like he's really in a bog in like the south or something. But it's totally spooky, and totally looks amazing. So after he buries his son, the monster, Pumpkinhead, is born. And the witch totally takes over and doesn't tell him like the details of what's going to happen, but you can tell it's pretty creepy. And I can tell why I was scared by this as a kid. Like the whole setting and the storyline is pretty creepy. One of the things that I love is Ed's telepathic connection to the monster. The monster, being very alien-like and huge, is totally creepy, but he has this telepathic connection with Ed. As he starts to go after the douchebags that killed Ed's son, you can tell that Ed is just tormented. So as the douchebags start to get killed, the death scenes are pretty awesome. They're gory without being over the top like today. There's not a lot of spraying blood, Evil Dead style, which would be cool too, but it's pretty like awesome how they did it and really scary at the same time. So without giving away too many more details, even though I did give some spoilers, I really love the ending. I love how this mystical, creepy story ends up, the telepathic connection ends up hurting Ed a lot more, but they leave it open so you can know how the evolution of Pumpkinhead happened. Now, I didn't see any of the sequels after this because this movie scared me so bad as a kid, I was totally frightened. So the second movie that I reviewed was Ghoulies. My impression as a child was that there was these really creepy, scary monsters that would attack you from the toilet. I was frightened of sitting on toilets after watching this movie as a kid. I think I was like 8 or 9 when it came out. And for like 2 or 3 years, I wouldn't sit all the way down on a toilet without looking underneath to make sure that there was no ghoulie about to pop up and eat my ass.
Bloodthirsty. They're back. Ghoulies 2. Those devilish diminutive demons have returned to scare up some ghoulie fun at a hapless house of horrors.
Satan's Den's been losing money for 16 months. Our money. You have until the end of the weekend to turn it around.
Is it really scary, mister? I bet it's not. I bet it's stupid. This place is better than Epcot Center. Come on, let's go and get the guy.
Now the profits are up, but the returns are down. Ghoulies 2. They'll get you in the end. Again.
As a kid, yeah, getting your ass bit, not fun. As an adult, if you're into that, but as a kid, totally frightened. I mean, ghoulies have these crazy little teeth and they're mean. I'm just remembering it being super scary, and for years, frightened me. Even as an adult, sometimes I think about monsters coming out of the toilet. I don't know why. So at the beginning of the movie, the ghoulies are being taken by this priest who's trying to get rid of them. This satanic cult with really bad red cheap robes is chasing him, and he stumbles into a mechanic shop where there's this giant vat of bubbling ooze, and he tries to pour the ghoulies in there to kill them and get rid of them forever, but it doesn't work. They totally live, and they're like the slowest Muppet bad guys ever. But it's definitely like a creature flick. Like, I remember Critters was really awesome and scary, and then this movie came out around the same time, and then there was Chud, and they're all really similar, like, creatures that come and attack. I don't know, they just seem like My Little Monsters. I don't know if you remember that from the 80s, but they just seem like toys that took over a carnival. So that's pretty much the storyline. So the ghoulies come and take over this haunted house. They end up in a haunted house that's like a traveling carnival, and they take over the haunted house and start like attacking people inside of it. One of the main characters actually happens to be in Pumpkinhead 2, and I didn't even know that when I picked to watch both of these movies today. But one of the chicks, she plays Maggie in Pumpkinhead and Nicole in Ghoulies 2. One of the characters that I love is this old drunk magician, and he sees the ghoulies in the haunted house and totally thinks that he summoned them and that they need to listen to him because he's their boss. And he ends up living, and he's like, "You sons of bitches, I'm a magician, you can't kill me." And then they kill him. That sucks. And his death like affects the two other main characters in the movie, but the characters are kind of cool. I guess the people are kind of cool. There's the douchebag trying to make money, and it's his carnival now. He got it from his family, and he wants to just fire everybody and make it into mud wrestling. And there's a small person main character that's in it as well, and he's super cool and ends up like living in the end, which is great. But overall, like, the movie got kind of slow for a while. The ghoulies were attacking people in the haunted house. There was some douchebag kids that went around like trying to break the haunted house and then end up making the carnival a lot of money by telling everybody about the ghoulies that are in there, thinking that it's really like part of the haunted house. But then there's these teenagers that come in and they get messed up and they cause some problems, and then the owner like kicks out some of the employees that are cool characters and plays his douchebag role really well, and then he goes into his trailer and he gets the toilet scene. Ah!
It's not your fault. You had nothing to do with it.
Totally attacks his ass out of the toilet, and I can tell why I'm still scared of that freaking ghoulie coming out of the toilet. It's not fun. And then the main characters, they find out what's going on with the ghoulies and all the deaths, and then they try to save the day, so they find some book and they totally summon up a giant ghoulie who runs around eating all the other ghoulies, and then they kill him with a Molotov cocktail and a giant bear that he thinks is a ghoulie and tries to eat, and then he like kind of blows up or something, and then they take off in a Volkswagen Bug and live happily ever after. The storyline is kind of funny, and I can tell that they were kind of go more with the cheesy route than the first movie was like trying to be really scary. But it was fun. It was fun to watch. I mean, I don't know. So I value that these movies had a lot of people that made them cool in the 80s, and they scared the crap out of kids like me, so they were effective. And I would love for my son to see them now and then compare them maybe 10, 20 years from now with the movies that he's seen, to just see the evolution of how we as viewers see movies and special effects and how they, and storylines too. Because that toilet scene, man, it scared me for a long time. But just see how those storylines affect us as kids compared to when we're adults. So I might do some more of these, because there was a lot of movies that I saw as a kid that I watch now as an adult, and I completely changed my point of view on them. Some of them I end up loving even more. Some of them I totally hate, and I don't know why I liked them so much. But I would definitely recommend both of these movies. That's Pumpkinhead and Ghoulies 2 this Halloween. Make sure that you check them out. They're both available on Amazon Prime for rent. Pretty cheap, and you can find them on Amazon. I will add some links down in the description for your viewing pleasure. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great and happy Halloween. Me and my buddy here, we're gonna have an awesome Halloween. I'll share some stories on my Instagram and on my Twitter with the costumes that I made for myself, my son, and my husband, which I can't wait to wear. And I hope you all, again, have a happy Halloween. Be sure to like and subscribe.